Nina Turner, former state senator from Ohio, has a show now on TYT called Unbossed. Every time I've had a look at it, it has been both really good and about something I've recently talked about. So I haven't had the opportunity to feature her yet. I'm delighted that I can right now. But first, we got to define a term. It's dark money. Let's pull this up right now. Dark money. It refers to spending meant to influence political outcomes, where the source of the money is not disclosed. In other words, somebody paid for a politician, their ads, their whatever. They funded a politician, but the voter doesn't get to know who that is. There's the explanation. Politically active nonprofits such as 501c4s are generally under no legal obligation to disclose their donors, even if they spend to influence elections. When they choose not to reveal their sources of funding, they are considered dark money groups. Aha! But when does it come to the actual donating? Well, opaque nonprofits and shell companies may give unlimited amounts of money to super PACs. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, if you're familiar with our Big Money Out of Politics stream, super PACs are one of the things we have to get rid of for America to become a genuine, true democracy. While super PACs are legally required to disclose their donors, some of these groups are effectively dark money outlets when the bulk of their funding cannot be traced back to the original donor. In other words, it's illegal for super PACs to not disclose who gave them money. But if a nonprofit collects money from all sorts of places, they can give them money, and the super PAC only has to list that the nonprofit gave them money. Well, Jake, you might say, couldn't you just call yourself a 501c4 and then give money to a super PAC? You sure could. You surely could. That is the reality we're dealing with. Here's the consequence. Nina Turner, Unbossed.
Let us remind you, though, the troubles that dark money has caused. Again, this is not new, what Dan and I are talking to you about today. Let's put up the Intercept headline. Rep. Henry Kolar gets boost from dark money group launched by his close aide. The Voter Education Foundation, linked to abortion ban advocates, sponsor ads against the conservative Democrats' primary challenger, and that was Jessica Cisneros. Those of you who are in Texas and those of you who may remember this race, we know that these groups weighed in on that. Jessica had a very good chance to win until that dark money started pouring in. And then you guys may remember this. I know I do. Ohio's 11th congressional district, and we're talking about the Ohio underscored, bolded, underlined it. 11th congressional district race turns negative in final days as outside money ramps up. No one is left scathed. Very few people, especially those of us who are progressive freedom fighters, they come in after us. And it's really ironic how the Democrats come harder at progressive Democrats than they do even against Republicans. Dan, any thoughts about that? What happened to Jessica? Not just Jessica, me and others, and how this dark money really does take away. My primary concern here is that the voice of the people in those communities, that voice is taken away by outside people coming in here who really don't care about the troubles that those communities or the needs that those communities may have.
When she says the voice of the people is taken away, imagine these are representatives that are being essentially bribed with dark money. So you've got a representative is only representing a district. Think about how big your district is. That is one representative going to Washington. It's a collection of towns. It's not a massive area. So if you have two candidates running in a primary, one is a corporate Democrat. They'll take money from big oil. They'll take money from the gun manufacturers, whatever. They don't care. They'll take it from anywhere. And they'll make sure their donors are happy. Then you got another potential representative. They only take small dollar donations. In fact, they've never even had the opportunity to take large dollar donations, because this one said they're going to do gun reform. They're going to focus on green energy. No billionaire is a fan of this one because they said they're going to tax the rich. Well, they get, in their district, 1,000 people donating, and everybody donates $5. Hey, that's $5,000. Neat. This person gets one person donating. It's dark money. You don't know where it came from. And they got $500,000 donated to them. Off the charts. TV buys. Every local news station's running ads for this person, not this person. This person's got to use their $5,000 to pay a couple of canvassers, to buy lunch for the staff that spent all night making phone calls. That's the kind of odds that decent politicians are up against. If you want to legislate against some of these monstrous corporations, that's the kind of odds that are up against. And as Nina Turner is saying here, it takes away the voice of the people. Your political donation matters much less in the face of those kinds of odds. By the way, these people are donating to races like this. What do we have? There's $4.9 billion spent on lobbyists alone. Not total on election campaigning, yada, yada, yada. On lobbyists alone last year, if I remember. Well, no, in 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. $4.9 billion. Do you think these are bad businessmen? Do you think these people casually spend $4.9 billion on lobbyists? No. They're getting a return on their profit. And they're investing more every year. Ladies and gentlemen, that is called an oligarchy. That is when we are ruled by the rich. And I hate to tell you this, we're living in it. There is the illusion of choice when that happens. The only answer is to get a huge chunk of the population to be politically active, to be aware. Because in this case, knowledge genuinely is power. Good news is we're making strides. More and more progressives are arriving in politics because more and more people have noticed that something's wrong with America. And unfortunately, a good chunk of them have decided it must be the Jews, and they become MAGA. The rest, though, you folks, who, by the way, I encourage to run for office if you want to do the ultimate what you can do. That's what you can't do. I'm too weird. You probably could do it, though. A huge chunk of people are becoming progressives because we both see the same problem. We are ruled by the rich, and it is not a true democracy as long as that is so. Let's listen to what the commentator has to say here.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes it's acting in bad faith. I mean, we all know what certain like major dark money groups said about you in bad faith. And I had the pleasure of speaking about to Jessica Cisneros as well about how, yeah, that was her second time running. She had really built a great ground game when there was like, she was running at that point, but you had the issue where, yeah, Henry Cuellar came in and he had his big Democratic Party donors who were behind him. And with that infrastructure, it has exactly what you're saying. It has that effect where the regular people, the voters, the person whose like door you're knocking on, my old favorite pre-COVID favorite part of politics is just canvassing and talking to people who may have R's by their name, and by the end of that conversation, they're a D. That's great stuff. That's real politics. This money wipes that out. This money cancels out those people's voices, and that's the most infuriating thing because when you do canvass, there is so much that we can do together. You really see that opportunity, and then big money comes in, and it's back to politics as usual.
Yeah, it definitely manipulates and taints the entire process by taking over airwaves with negativity and stuff that really has no bearing directly on the needs of the people. I know in the 11th congressional district, having 50% of our children living in poverty, the need for universal health care as we need all across this country, jobs, all of that stuff got drowned out by these dark money groups who wanted to be able to own, because that's what this comes down to. They want to be able to own the people who get these seats. And it's very unfortunate, especially in a primary. And the cherry on the top, Democrats love to use hot issues to make a quick buck, but then don't do anything about those issues. So this headline.
This hurts. It hurts. But it's quite true. If you want to know why your old pal Jake gets so angry at corporate Democrats, it is because they make it difficult to make a distinction between genuine leftists and right-wingers. Case in point, what Nina's about to go into. I'll let her talk. She's going to do better than me.
Democrats use abortion rights to fundraise, but don't fight to protect those rights. Some of us are old enough to remember all that fundraising that went on once the Supreme Court took away Roe v. Wade. And in Texas in particular, there was an opportunity to have a pro-choice candidate win in Jessica, but instead leaders like Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn and others sided with Cuellar against this young woman, and on top of that, then had the nerve to fundraise with their folks about Roe v. Wade. The irony.
Why did they do that? Why would the corporate Democrats not want somebody who is going to fight so hard for abortion rights? Because that person comes with a cost. The cost is they're going to fight against big corporate donations. I call them corporate Democrats, the term I use for most of these centrists, corporate Democrats, because they are bought and paid for by corporations. Not an exaggeration. It's not inflammatory language. It's accurate language. Plain and simple. When you are funded more by corporations than small dollar donations, you're a corporate Democrat. If you're a Democrat. You are a corporate politician. You will represent the interests of the corporation above the people. Why? Because it makes you more likely to get reelected. Similarly, when they take donations like that, I used to receive those emails all the time from the Democratic Party, and it would look very much like, it would just be a slightly more sophisticated version of the emails Donald Trump would send out. Donald Trump would send out an email talking about a lie. He would say, there's an army of Mexicans coming over the border. Got to build a wall. Donate. He would then take the donations and not do anything of substance, yada, yada, yada. Democrats would tell you about a real problem. Republicans are coming to get rid of abortion. Yes, they are. Yes, they did. And they would take donations. But then they do the same thing Trump would do. When it came down to actual action, indiscernible, they may as well have made up the issues they were talking about. They may as well have said, do you own a kitten? Well, Republicans are going to try to cook and eat it. For the action they took, they may as well have. It makes it look like we're lying about the issues that we're talking about. It makes it look like we're exaggerating what a big deal it is when they don't, support people coming up who are saying that's what they want to fight against, versus Cuellar, who is an anti-abortion guy that is somehow allowed to call himself Democrat. No, he takes corporate money. That's the guy they support. And it makes them look disingenuous. It makes it look like they were lying the whole time about a belief that abortion is a right. The public who doesn't follow this closely, it's understandable that they would come to that conclusion. When they had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they did not make abortion a fundamental right that could not be revoked. They didn't write it into a national law. So we are left then with parties that on the surface look very similar, and it's depressing.
Cannot be lost. America, come on now. We got to do something about this and not continue to be complicit in our own demise. This stuff is just absolutely, it makes you shake your head really hard.
If I
Yeah,
could
go
say
ahead, Dan.
one last thing too,
Sure.
to me, this is all within the context of the Democratic National Committee deciding to move South Carolina up ahead when they could have chosen more diverse states like Nevada or Michigan, like states where someone other than Jim Clyburn basically puts their thumb on the scales for whoever wins. But like, of
South
course, the
Carolina
Iowa,
killed me
New
in
Hampshire
2020.
primaries. I was a producer at TYT during those primaries. It was a mess. It was a ridiculous situation. You had
I was there.
you had one of Buttigieg's companies somehow involved in the Iowa results. It was a big mess. We don't want to go back to that system, but okay, if we're talking about replacing systems, the Democratic National Committee is clearly down to make changes for what it feels like, what they feel like will yield better results for better candidates. But of course, what they think are better candidates is very out of tune with what the grassroots thinks. And every time you get warriors like you going to these state meetings and whole Democratic National Committee meetings, the same thing happens. You're just brushed aside as if you're the college students touring for the first time trying to get selfies with all the politicians. Like, it's ridiculous, and it's indicative of efforts that need to be had inside the Democratic Party, but also efforts that need to happen outside of the Democratic Party to pressure them and show them that there is no other choice but listening to the grassroots activists.
Ultimately, it's coming down to that, and that's why the majority of the voters don't subscribe to either one of these parties, Dan. They tired of the foolishness and the okey doke. They see right through it, but especially younger voters.
I mean, no notes. Completely correct. There is something you can do about this. It's pretty straightforward. As a matter of fact, it ain't an easy fight, but it is a necessary fight to take up. Getting big money out of politics. Great news on the difficulty, I suppose. There's already an organization working on this. We don't have to form one. We don't have to do the lion's share of the tedious work. That right there. Citizens take action. They are working on an effort to get an amendment to our Constitution. Why an amendment? Because the Supreme Court has given a number of decisions, not just one, not just two, a number of decisions that have made it possible for wealthy people to just flood our political system with money. For example, Buckley v. Vallejo was a major one. Yep. Oh, it's up there. Citizens United, another. These allow, for example, somebody to buy, even though one person cannot give an infinite amount of money directly to a candidate, still somehow we have that law. What they can do, because of these decisions, they can buy an infinite amount of campaign ads on their behalf. Or they can form a super PAC, which is just the same person putting on a different hat, and then give an infinite amount of money. Or as we saw earlier, a 501c4 can collect money from all sorts of people, then give that money to a PAC, and then give that money to a politician. And then that way they have laundered it properly, and in America they can bribe that politician. If we want this to stop, citizens take action is the path to do it. Links in the description. You can, of course, take the quick route. Make your representative do the work for you. You don't want to make phone calls. You don't want to, spend a Saturday afternoon fighting the good fight because, by God, you got a limited amount of minutes on this earth. I understand. Contact your representative. Tell them simply you want them to publicly endorse the Restore Democracy Amendment. Restore Democracy Amendment is what they are. I'm going to just there we go, is what they are trying to get pushed. They have named the thing. They have worked on the wording of the thing. They've done the legwork, in other words, in terms of getting together the legal approach to this. Contact your representative. Tell them you want them to publicly endorse the Restore Democracy Amendment. The reason why we want them to publicly endorse this is because we have to get momentum going. We need one person who the news cameras are obligated to cover when they say I'm holding a press conference. We want one person to start saying, I believe in the Restore Democracy Amendment. That forces others to discuss it. That forces another news outlet to say, oh, this person's in your political clique. Do you also support the Restore Democracy Amendment? That forces the reporter to look up what that is. Getting our representatives to do this is how we generate momentum for this. If you want to be more active, if you believe in attacking this problem directly, it would feel good for your soul to be fighting these people directly, you can volunteer for Citizens Take Action. My pop, who hates being called pop, is fond of quoting that old saying, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." It does. True. Take the step. Sign up.